All right, so I'm going to show you a simple, well, at least it's simple now that I know it, way to have an SSL certificate set up with your Cloudfront distribution so that you can do what I want to do, which is have a Squarespace domain point to an AWS Cloudfront distribution and allow it to resolve. And in order for that to happen, it needs an SSL. So here's my setup. I'm basically having a very simple website. It's a static website. It's hosted on S3. What I wanted to do is, after hosting this website on S3, I actually wanted to have my Squarespace domain point to it. Problem is, the SSL certificate for Squarespace only works if you use their items or their provided resources. You need your own SSL if you're going to do anything with AWS. Thankfully, AWS will give you a free certificate. I have a video explaining how to get the certificate in more detail. But basically, you get the certificate, you prove that you own the domain, and after you prove you own the domain, you can then use the certificate and attach it to your Cloudfront distribution. Now, for your Cloudfront distribution, I created the default. I didn't do anything special here. It's basically literally the default definition. The two things that I did in order to make this work, because when I created this Cloudfront distribution and I pointed it to the distribution itself, it did not work, right? I would get a 403 error, or I would get a SSL cert error. So this is, you can always test your own Cloudfront piece, right? So your Cloudfront piece will definitely resolve, or at least will tell you if your website's loading properly. Right now I have a certain security piece in place where it doesn't load from any domain but my domain. We're going to change that, but for now that's the case. So the website's working, right? We can see Cloudfront's working, but in order for this to work with your Squarespace piece, you're going to need, like I mentioned, you need to have the SSL cert validated, which is I did. You then need to have a @CNAME or an @alias, meaning a self-referential. At this point in time, Squarespace does not support @CNAME. It exists in theory, but they don't support it. So what I had to do was use an @alias. Again, also, if you want to, you can transfer your domain to AWS and have it in Route 53. I did not do that after Googling it and seeing the horror stories of people saying that certain errors happen, their domain is not working, and it can take up to 15 days. I said, I'll just make it work with Squarespace. So in order to use this @alias, you're going to go to DNS-SCC, the security piece, and turn it off, because Squarespace will notify you. You can try to do an @alias, but it'll say that's not allowed because of the DNS security setting. I just turned it off because I wanted the ability to use a flat alias. So what this is going to do, this @ piece, basically what that means is that that's the host. So that basically means when I go to my website, it'll basically auto resolve and it'll end up going to the Cloudfront. So as you can see, this is me going to my domain. My domain technically is then going to go to Cloudfront. Cloudfront has a secure SSL certificate. Cloudfront is sitting in front of the S3 bucket that has the code that actually, executes this website. And there we go. Now I probably need to, still test this. I don't even know if the www works properly. No, it doesn't. Funny. So obviously, as you can see here, there's some tweaks to be done here. I guess I'm gonna take a wild guess to say that this www may be needed in the Cloudfront setting. Let me actually do that really quickly and see if this resolves it, because I did it for the. I guess now that I think about it, I should just do it for blindly wildcard hosts. That way any subdomain of this works, because that's kind of the way I want it to work, honestly. So let's do that. A little bit weird. I did this piece right here for the alternate domain name. I did not have this, and when I did not have this, I got exactly this. I don't know why. That's kind of necessary. I didn't see any tutorials or any docs mentioning this, but apparently this is optional and it's needed. But it's basically ultimate domain name. It's a CNAME. And I guess it's kind of necessary for the AWS side, I guess, because without it, it basically doesn't work. Okay, it looks like that worked, right? Let's see, www dot. Cool, nice. All right, so it worked. Boom. All right, so I guess in all reality, I should have done this with a wildcard here. I guess now let's ask a stupid question. I think I know the answer. What happens when I click on this link and it changes the URL to be / something else? Oh, it worked. Oh, okay. I thought it was going to fail. All right. Cool. So it looks like we have everything set up. The components for this is, again, S3 bucket with the website. After that, we have a Cloudfront distribution sitting in front of the website or in front of the S3 bucket. And then we have an SSL certificate that is basically authenticating our Cloudfront piece to our SquareSpace piece. And on top of that, it looks like what's also necessary, although it says optional, is my domain being added to the CNAME portion here. I'm not 100% sure if I could have done anything else. And again, remember, if you're doing anything with Cloudfront, Cloudfront is dynamic IPs, so you want to use an alias. That's why I did not use an A record, because A record takes IP and IPs change for Cloudfront. So that's a couple things to take into consideration. But after a lot of pain and turmoil, this was ended up being correct. And by the way, as you're testing all this out and doing this, I highly recommend you use the dig command with NS record lookup and CNAME lookup. This helped a lot when I was doing validation. As I said, I made a video about that. But that's about it. That's all the information. I now have a website that is properly configured. It is now able to be accessed on the World Wide Web. And as annoying as this is, as much as you might say, oh, wow, why don't you just use Squarespace to host your website? It's a static website. What's the big deal? A lot of the reason why I even did this is because I want AWS on the back end. Before I was using Google Firebase, I actually transferred this from Google to AWS after finding out that with a static website, there's no real security measure for using access keys and secret keys. I did a half-hearted security piece, which was to basically add business logic to say that, listen, if you are not the actual domain interacting with this bucket, you cannot touch anything. It's an okay security measure, but it's not a great security measure. I am happy to have AWS on the back end, as annoying as this was. And although it does take a little bit more steps, I'm familiar with AWS. I appreciate AWS on the back end. And we now have our website in AWS. And if I wanted to make a Lambda that interacts with the site, I can. If I want to use roles for access to buckets as opposed to the access key and secret key I'm doing right now, I can. That's what I'm going to do. There's a lot of positives here, and I'm happy I was able to do this. A little bit flustered because I thought all I needed to do was basically create an AWS S3 bucket and then have that CNAME their alias. No, that's not the case. What you need, again, is CloudFront with that certificate manager, and then on top of that, just all the DNS definitions that you have in your own Squarespace, GoDaddy, whatever hosting space that you're using.